بلغ العلا بكماله كشف الدجى بجماله حسنت جميع خصاله صلوا عليه وآله صلوا عليه وآله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وبه أستعين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. اللهم انفعنا بما تعلمنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتوفيقا وتسديدا وتحقيقا إنك على كل شيء قدير. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Today is the second installment in the commentary and reading of the book Al-Ibriz, the pure gold, collecting the words and teachings of our Sheikh Sidi Abdul-Aziz Al-Dabbagh Al-Hassani. Last time we left off, he was discussing how Sayyidina Sheikh was inheriting the asrar and the ulum and the barakat and the blessings from his previous teachers and shuyukh, and discussing how sometimes that happens and how it doesn't only have to be a didactic transmission, but can also mean a quantum transmission, meaning that with Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and with his family in particular, the knowledges that they have is carried in their beings. So the first food that came into the mouth of Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Hassan and Hussein was the saliva of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, right? And that this by itself, the first thing that opened their bellies was his blessed saliva, before even the milk. And that throughout their lives they were, either wearing his clothes or sharing his food or in intimate contact with him, being carried by him and so on. All of these are a type of transmission. What's going on behind the scenes, that this is a type of osmosis and transmission. Just being simply in contact with the that of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's what's being passed down. And so the clothes that someone wears, the rings that they wear, the hats that they wear, the sibhas that they use, even the food that you cook, all of these things, these inanimate objects, and they vary in how much they can carry and transmit, and their ability to carry and transmit, but all of these transmit your spiritual states. And so Shaykh Al-Akbar Muhyiddin ibn Arabi, he said that in the past, it's not done as much anymore, but in the past the shuyukh would, for example, in a dhikr circle, achieve a blessing of becoming into a state, into a certain spiritual hal, that they see in their students is deficient and lacking. So they know that their student, for example, doesn't have as much patience with what they're going through. So in the spiritual circle, they request from Allah to be given the tajalliyat of His name as-Sabur, and to increase that with the dhikr. And so at a certain moment when they're saturated with that, they take off their cloak, and in that moment dress the murid, the student, in that cloak. And in that time the student, absorbs that spiritual state, and they achieve what they could probably need, I don't know how many rak'at, I don't know how many sadaqah, I don't know how many salawat, a lot of effort that they would need otherwise, but they achieve it in a very quick time. And there's many examples of that, So with that background, we continue. Bismillah. So he was talking about his teacher Sayyid al-Arabi al-Fashtali, and he said, and his student Ahmed ibn Mubarak is recording him saying, I heard him sometimes mention the same thing about Sidi Mansour, another one of his teachers. وكان من الأقطاب, and used to be one of the أقطاب. أقطاب, from the singular qutb, these are hierarchies, these are levels and stations in the spiritual family. And they all have very strict hierarchies. And we can get into more details about that later on. وقال إنه كان من أهل الديوان في حال حياته وأما بعد موته فإنه لا يحضره وذكر لذلك سببا سيأتي إن شاء الله في أثناء الكتاب. And he, Sidi Mansur, used to be one of the Ahlul Diwan, used to be one of the awliya who are present in the Diwan, in the gathering or meeting place of the nightly meeting of the awliya, of the high level awliya, of these Aqtab and Abdal and Awtad and so on and so forth. Sometimes the angels are present in there, sometimes the believing jinn are present in there, but mostly it's the human awliya, and also anbiya can sometimes be present there on occasion. So, and it doesn't have to mean that only the ones who are alive at that time, it can be past awliya too, that they come visit there, because this is a meeting of the arwah. And Allah Ta'ala gave permission for the souls of the awliya to have free motion and movement in the arena of the barzakh, that they're not chained and shackled as others are. Okay? If we know that the person who dies and he has debts that he owes, that this person is shackled, so we understand that on the opposite side, the one who doesn't have that, they have a certain amount of freedom to move and to act. So he used to be one of these people in the Ahlul Diwan. وبعد وفاة سيدي عمر بثلاثة أيام, we remember we talked about the person who was in charge of and tending to the service of those who were in the tomb or the resting place of Sidi Ali bin Harazim. His name was Sidi Umar, and he was the one who later informed that, oh, do you know who gave you the word that you're saying 7,000 times a day? That was Al-Khidr alayhi salam. So this Sidi Umar was a third pivotal figure in the life of our Shaykh and one of his teachers. And so he said, after 3 days of his passing, Sidi Umar, وَقَعَ عَلِي وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الْفَتْحِ. After 3 days, Allah Ta'ala gave me the spiritual opening, Al-Fath. وَعَرَفْنَا اللَّهِ بِحَقِيقَةِ نُفُوسِنَا. And we came to know Allah and recognize Allah in the reality of our own selves, and internally, experientially. Not knowing Allah by what someone taught us, not knowing Allah by something externally, but in the reality of our own selves, for a true fact, 100%, we came to know Allah Ta'ala with this spiritual opening. فَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ وَلَهُ الشُّكْرُ وَذَلِكَ يَوْمُ الْخَمِيسِ الثَّامِنِ مِنْ رَجَبٍ. And that was on the day of Thursday, the 8th day of Rajab. Okay? In the year of 1125. So look at exactly how he's, in a way, documenting the moment. And what's interesting is that one of the other awliya, that he was walking with Sayyidina Khidr alayhi salam, and they were passing by a graveyard, and he was pointing that, okay, this person died when he was 3 years old, and this person died when he was 5 years old, and this person died when he was 3 days old. And it was well known that the people in the graves died when they were 70, 80. So what was he saying? He's saying that 3 years old, that means that the last 3 years of his life, Allah Ta'ala opened him up spiritually, that he got the spiritual illumination and opening, and that's when his life really began. Otherwise it was just infancy, spiritual infancy. That's when his nuduj, when his spiritual maturity began. And so that's what Al-Khidr alayhi salam was referring to. Okay? And when you get this type of high level fath, of course, just to give a few comments with the fath, there's different levels. Okay, there's lower levels of fath and there's higher levels of fath. And you can, for most people, they do experience kind of a very low level of fath in the practices, in the efforts that they do spiritually. they do reach a certain level. And so you might, for example, be doing dhikr, and day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out, you're doing dhikr, especially of La ilaha illallah, a very powerful dhikr. And at first, let's say we're talking about freezing, almost freezing water, or very cold water, and you put it over the fire, and it starts to slowly get hotter and hotter and hotter. And this pot of water, as it's building up heat, with the candle under it, then it reaches to a boiling point. It reaches to a certain, 100 degrees, and then starts to boil. If the pot is over the flame, and the flame one day is going like this, and one day is going like this, and it's not consistently straight under the pot, then it's going to take a longer while. And so that means that day in, day out, you have to be consistent in your awrad, in your adhkar, to work on yourself. So not, for example, do one day of intense awrad and then the 1 week going wishy-washy like this. And so the heat of the dhikr starts to work on yourself, and in whatever deficiency you have, or whatever stain or blemish spiritually that you have, that's where it attacks. If someone is, their body, the meat and flesh of their body is built upon haram food, then the dhikr is going to take a long time to get rid of the haramness, the stain of that. And so you won't get the illumination right there. If, on the other hand, you establish a good foundation where you have halal food all the time, and not only in terms of the biha, but also the money you bought it with is halal money, and so many other factors which you don't have time to get into, that you live a life where you maintain your purity, your tahara. As soon as you break your wudu, you remake it again. And also internal purity, where you try to, as much as possible, keep your hearts clean of negative thoughts, of negative energies, and build that kind of foundation. Then it's a very sensitive balance. It's a very sensitive balance. But once you have that foundation through your fasting, through your prayers, through your tahara, through your service to others, your charity, through making dua to others, especially your enemies, then maybe for this person, saying 100 La ilaha illallah is more efficacious than the other person who doesn't care about setting that foundation up. They might need to say 10,000 La ilaha illallah to reach the same conclusion. Because those 10,000 La ilaha illallah have to work on cleaning up your dirty house. Your house, and this guy, his house is already clean. And so 100 La ilaha illallah is very much efficacious for them. And once they don't have any more, the adhkar doesn't have any more, for example, dirt to clean, then it can start in the next step, starting to bring in the nur, starting to bring in the illumination, jazakallah khair, into your being. And so, the crust, the layers over your soul start to break open, start to have holes that break open. And this is where the nur, the divine nur, comes in. And so you, as the tasbih goes from moving from your tongue into your heart and into your intellect and start penetrating, and you digest more the meaning of the tasbih, at the same time, this is when your spiritual body starts to grow and grow and more and more and more, grow and more. At that same time, you have like certain levels you reach, what they call critical mass, okay? Critical mass that you reach spiritually. And so, boom, you break through some barrier, and down rushes to you, the divine graces, and you get a spiritual opening. Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to drink water in sips, and he used to drink milk in gulps. Right? The water is the purity, and the milk is the knowledge, as he explained. So the water in sips, meaning as in a way to signify to us that the purity is by slow gradations. You earn more and more purity through the acts that you do and through Allah accepting those acts, and you earn slowly higher levels of purity, as if someone is sipping water. Tamaman. As for the milk, the gulps of milk, as you get into those higher levels of purity, then you get like a rush a rush of divine knowledge. Not book knowledge, but divine knowledge. And these breaks where the light rushes in, these are called fath. This is what is being referred to as fath. And so it's different levels. And so you might, and you experience this, if you're regular in your dhikr, you do experience this. And so someone is doing tahleed, la ilaha illallah, someone's doing the divine names, especially, very, very powerful adhkar. And so these might start either to feel some symptoms of the fath going on. They might feel heat being generated within you, within the body, to the point that sometimes you start to sweat. You might feel as if you just came out of the gym working out. You might, some people experience like hearing sounds, hearing commotions, whether they describe it as animal sounds or hooves rushing, horses rushing, or wind blowing, some kinds of sounds like these, which are like going into a level where angels are moving. Angels, malaika, you know, when you have a big thrush of angels, you hear these kinds of sounds. Or it could be good jinn. Could be good jinn also. And so you start to have these symptoms. And or you, for example, you have like a prickly feeling, like you're doing dhikr with your tongue, and maybe you feel needles on your tongue, a prickly feeling. That's also a sign of the soon-to-come fath. Depending on your capacity, depending on the divine grace that Allah showers you with, depending on your efforts as well, that determines what level or what degree or what intensity is going to be the fath. And so, if you can imagine, you know, he was doing 7,000 adhkar a day, the fath is not going to be a small one, it's going to be an enormous one. And so, it was such a shattering, life-changing event that he documented, you know, on the day of Thursday, the 8th of Rajab. This is what I felt, and let's hear what he says. فخرجت من دارنا فرزقني الله تعالى على يد بعض المتصدقين من عباده 4 موزونات. So I left my house one day, on this day, and one of the people who gives charity, alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala on his hands gave me 4 coins. Mawzunat in the Moroccan talk is coins. فاشتريت الحوت, I brought some fish, وقدمت به إلى دارنا, and I started going back to my home to bring this fish home to eat. الخضر, and the story of the fish. فقالت لي so my wife said to me, اذهب إلى سيدي علي بن حرزهم. My wife said to me, go to Sidi Ali bin Hurzihim, the same tomb, the same grave, right? Get some olive oil so that we can fry this fish, because over there is where they sell olive oil apparently. فذهبت فلما بلغت باب الفتوح دخلتني قشعريرة. So I went over there, and interestingly, the gate to go into the compound is called itself Bab al-Futuh. The gate is called Bab al-Futuh, the door of openings. And that's also something interesting, that Allah Ta'ala, when He set up the universe, when He set up creation, you know, the names are very important. And so you might go into a certain, you know, when you go visit the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you enter through Bab al-Salam, okay? Or you might go through Bab Jibreel, or Bab Abu Bakr al-Siddiq, and you know, these things have effects and impacts, the names of things. And so as I entered the Bab al-Futuh, I started feeling like my skin crawling, ثم رعدة, and like a shaking, like a light shaking in my body. ثم جعل لحمي يتنمل كثيرا, and then I started feeling like my flesh of my whole body was getting like a pringling sensation. يتنمل, going numb and pringly, like needles. فجعلت أمشي وأنا على ذلك الحال, so I started to slowly walk, and I was getting this kind of intense feeling building up and building up. والحال يتزايد إلى أن بلغت إلى قبر سيدي يحيى بن علال, and the feeling was intensifying until I reached the grave of Sidi Yahya ibn Alad. Of course, Sidi Ali bin Hirzihim, I visited him. It's a whole compound, like a whole courtyard, and so you have other people buried there, and this is one of them. وهو في طريق سيدي علي بن, and he's on the way to Sidi Ali bin Hirzihim. فاشتد الحال وجعل صدري يضطرب اضطرابا عظيما. So the hal became even more intense, and my chest and my heart, I started to get stronger heartbeats, and so it started to build up. You get the idea. حتى كانت ترقوتي تضرب لحيتي, until I felt my chest beating so hard it was like hitting my beard. My chest, my collar, almost like hitting my beard, as if he's saying. فقلت هذا هو الموت من غير شك, and I said, without doubt, I'm gonna die. Without doubt, this means like this is maybe Azrael taking my soul. And so you see that it's a very intense shattering and breaking through of this intense nur, all of a sudden coming in and breaking him. ثم خرج شيء من ذاتي كأنه بخار ثم جعلت ذاتي تتطاول حتى صارت أطول من كل طويل. And then some kind of vapor, I experienced some kind of vapor leaving my body. Some kind of vapor leaving my body, right? And I felt as if that not physically speaking, but I felt as if my body was growing taller and taller and taller until it was taller than anything around me. That just reminds me of the fact of the shama'il of where Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that he would be of medium to tall height, and then whenever he walked with someone, he would be shown to be taller than that person, as if he was taller than that person. Not that his bones grew, but that the ruhaniyah, the spirituality of the Prophet was overpowering every other person and showing as much grandeur and taller. So that's the same sign. Yani, in the seerah, if you read the seerah closely, many of the same things that happened with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can see mirrors, of course, with the huge difference between us and him. But you can see mirrors and relationships and similarities between what happens. With Jibreel alayhi salam hugging the Prophet intensely until he couldn't breathe. ثم جعلت الأشياء تنكشف لي وتظهر كأنها بين يدي. And then new vistas, new horizons started to appear to me, where I could see things appearing before my eyes, and things that were at a distance. I can see them now appearing before my eyes. And this is part of the fath that happens as well, is the folding up of creation. Okay, the folding up of creation. And so, whereas, for example, let's say we're in the Milky Way galaxy and the Andromeda is, I don't know how many light years away, so all this distance folds up. And so you first begin with the mineral kingdom, right? You see the minerals appearing before you, and you see their spirituality communicating with you. Just like the pebbles made tasbih audibly in the hands of the prophets and Sahaba, that you experience these kinds of the meanings of the mineral kingdom, right? So the mineral kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, then the animal kingdom, then the other elemental kingdoms like the jinn. So usually the first thing you come in contact in terms of sentient beings is the jinn, the world of the jinn. And the jinn have a field day with you. The jinn have a field day with you that, look, most humans are sleeping. Most humans are completely and utterly materialistic. And we have this human here who's breaking through. He's going through the different levels, elevating, and so he matches our world, our dimension, our arena. And so the jinn want to have fun with this person. And so they either show him scary images, they know what he's scared of. If he's scared of snakes, they show him snakes. Or they try to entice him. I can give you all the money you want, I can give you all the power you want, I can make people love you and honor you and respect you, and so on and so forth. You're not supposed to pay any attention to them. Assalamu alaikum. You go up more and more and more. Okay, so he's telling us here that the world was folding up in front of my eyes, and so things at a distance was like rushing to me into my field of vision. And many people, they get stuck on these because they get enticed, and so that's their fath. And once you get, that's the dangerous thing, once you get pleased with where you are, that's where you stop. And so your goal shouldn't be anything less than Allah Himself. That's something so very important. And فَرَأَيْتُ جَمِيعَ الْقُرَى وَالْمُدُنْ وَالْمَدَاشِرِ. So I started to see all of the cities and the villages. ورأيت كل ما في هذا البر ورأيت النصرانية ترضع ولدها. And I saw everything in this land, so he's in Morocco, so let's say Morocco, Algeria, Tunis, Europe, Spain, France, Italy. And he said, I saw, for example, a Christian woman breastfeeding her son, her infant son, and he's in her lap. ورأيت جميع البحور, and I saw all the seas and oceans, and I saw the 7 earths, الأرضون السبع, the 7 earths. وكل ما فيهن من دواب ومخلوقات, and everything in them of creatures and animals and so on. ورأيت السماء وكأني فوقها وأنا أنظر ما فيها. And then I saw the first heaven, the first, not heaven, the first sky, the first sama, and as if I was like overlooking it or peering into it and seeing what's in this heaven, meaning he's elevating himself. وإذا بنور عظيم كالبرق الخاطف. And suddenly I came into contact with a very intense light which shone like a very quick lightning strike that took hold of my vision. الذي يجيء من كل جهة. And so this lightning strike came from every direction, not only from one direction but from all directions surrounding me. فجاء ذلك النور من فوقي ومن تحتي وعن يميني وعن شمالي. So this nur, this light, attacked me from above and below, from my right and left, from before me, from behind me, just like the dua an-nur that the Prophet ﷺ made in the time of Fajr. Fajr, what does Fajr mean in Arabic? Yani cracking open. So the Prophet ﷺ in the time of Fajr, before Subh prayer, he said, Allahumma, O Allah Ta'ala, shine your light upon me from before me, from behind me, from my right and left, above me and below me. Put light into my heart, light into my intellect, light into my eyes and ears, and the hadith. And so look at it would be, this hadith, this dua that you make would have a different effect if you said it in another time besides Fajr. But saying it in Fajr is the effect of the time. وَأَصَابَنِي مِنْهُ بَرْدٌ عَظِيمٌ. And I started to become cold from this light. And the nafs, the ego, is hot, and the ruh is cold, is cooling. حَتَّى ظَنَنْتُ أَنِّي مِتْ. Until I came to feel like I'm almost dying. The life heat of my body is escaping me, and I'm getting this cold feeling over me. When someone dies, they feel cold. The heat of their body escapes. So again, he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know exactly what's going on. فبادرت وركضت على وجهي لئلا أنظر إلى ذلك النور. So as I'm feeling this, all of a sudden I want to lie down on my face so I don't see that light, and I want to avoid it. So the intensity was so much that this is what I wanted to do. فلما ركضت رأيت ذاتي كلها عيونا. When I laid down on my face, I saw or experienced like my whole body was all eyes. Not only these eyes, but my whole body was all eyes. These eyes were looking or visual, having vision. The whole head was having vision. My feet were having vision. All of my limbs were having vision. ونظرت إلى الثياب التي علي فوجدتها لا تحجب ذلك النظر الذي صار في الذات. And my clothes were worthless. They weren't blocking anything. My clothes were not blocking anything. So I knew that laying down on my face, whether I lay down or whether I stand, it's all the same for me. ثم استمر الأمر علي ساعة وانقطع. So this happened for a span of time, for an hour, not necessarily 60 minutes, but for a span of time this was occurring to me, and then it started to dissipate. And I came back to feeling into my normal natural self. So slowly. فرجعت إلى المدينة ولم أقدر على الوصول إلى سيدي علي بن حرزهم. So I just left the compound of Sidi Ali. Maybe he's kind of blaming him for what's happening. And I just went back to the city. I said, forget this, I need to go back. ولم أقدر على الوصول. Okay, I read that. واشتغلت بالبكاء. I started crying. And I became fearful for myself. ثم عاودني ذلك الحال ساعة ثم انقطع. then again this state overcame me for a span of time, and then it dissipated. So it came and it went, it came and it went. فجعل يأتيني ساعة وينقطع ساعة أخرى إلى أن أصطحب مع ذاتي. So again, it came and it went, it came and it went, until I started to feel more comfortable with it and more accustomed to it. And then, for example, it would last, the day is 12 hours, it would last 11 hours and be gone for 1 hour of the day. And then it became daily, all throughout the day, it became occurrence, all throughout the day. ثم صار لا يغيب. It wouldn't leave me. ورحمني الله تعالى بأن جمعني مع بعض العارفين من أوليائه. At this time, Allah Ta'ala showed His mercy that He gathered me with one of His friends, with one of His awliya, to explain to me what's going on. وذلك أني لما أصبحت من الليلة التي بعد يوم الفتح. When I woke up from the night, the same day of the day of Fath, when I woke up the next day after that night, I went to visit Mawlay Idris radiallahu ta'ala anhu. I went to visit Sidi Mawlay Idris in Fas. Idris al-Azhar, meaning the one who built Fas, the one who built the city of Fas, and he was one of the great awliya, and he's Idris, the son of Idris al-Akbar, buried in Zarhun, the son of Abdullah al-Kamil, the son of Al-Hassan al-Muthanna, the son of Al-Hassan al-Sabt, Mawlana al-Hassan ibn Ali. So 5 people from Imam Hassan. This great wali buried in Fas, he's the one who began Fas, and I visited him. Usually when you're having these kind of situations, it's very good to visit the top, the real ruler of the land you're in, the top ruler, and to get their help. And so when I visited Mawlay Idris, he said, so at that location I saw the scholar al-faqih Sidi al-Hajj Ahmed al-Jurundi, وهو Imam Mawlay Idris, and he was the Imam of the masjid of Mawlay Idris. Today it's actually not the masjid. They don't actually do the 5 prayers there. It's just a maqam that they visit. But back then it used to be a masjid. فذكرت له ما رأيت وما وقع لي فقال انطلق معي إلى دارنا. So I mentioned to him, so not only he's a faqih, but he's a spiritual person, he knows what's going on. So I mentioned to him, I spoke about what happened to me, and he said, okay, come to my house. فذهبت معه إلى الدار التي بقرب السقاية التي بجوار الغسالين. So he's explaining the area where he went, which neighborhood and so on. We don't need to know about that. فدخل ودخلت معه وجلس على الدكان التي بداخلها. So he came in, I came in after him, we sat on the seat. So he said to me, أعد علي ما رأيت. So explain to me again, give me the story again from A to Z. And I told him again what happened. فنظرت إليه وهو يبكي فقال لا إله إلا الله. So I saw him begin to cry, and he sighed, and he said لا إله إلا الله, and he said هذه 400 عام ما سمعنا من يذكر مثل هذا. It's been 400 years that we ever heard someone speaking of this kind of experience. وأعطاني دراهم كثيرة, and he gave me a lot of money. It's interesting because a person going through this is not going to be focused on earning a livelihood. Their mind is going to be elsewhere. And so, mashallah, this faqih understood that I might be in need of some money to help support my family in this meantime, where my heart and spirit is somewhere else. And he gave me, 5 مثاقيل, an amount of money. وقال لي خذها واقضي بها حاجتك. So he said, take this money and fulfill your needs. Spend on what you need. وإذا فنيت لا تقل لأحد يعطيك شيئا وارجع إلي فأنا أعطيك كل ما يخصك. Once the money is done, don't ask anyone else for any support, for any charity. Just come back to me and I'll give you what you need. وأؤكد عليك أن تذهب إلى سيدي عبد الله التاوتي فإنك ترى خيرا. And I impress upon you that you should go to visit Sidi Abdullah al-Tawadi, one of the great Maliki fuqaha, to visit him over there, and you'll see something good, you'll see something to benefit you. قال فخرجت عنه وما رأيته من ذلك اليوم. When I left him, I didn't see him after that day. مرض فمات مرض موته فمات رحمه الله وعملت بوصيته. You know, alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala took his life. After I left him that situation, I didn't see him then. He became very sick and then he passed away. May Allah have mercy on him. And I did what he told me to do. فذهبت نحو سيدي عبد الله التاودي فلما بلغت الباب فإذا برجل أسود خارج الباب. So I said, okay, let me go to visit this person, Abdullah al-Tawudi ibn Sauda. And at the door over there, I saw an African man, a black man. خارج الباب. I saw him at the entrance of the door, outside. فجعل يصوب نظره إلي فأقول في نفسي ما يريد هذا. So this man who wasn't, he wasn't part of the locale. He was a stranger. He wasn't living there. And I started to notice him looking intensely right at me. And I started to think, what does he need with me? What does he want with me? فلما بلغت إليه أخذ بيدي وسلم علي وسلمت عليه. So I went to him, I said my salams to him. He responded with salams to me. And he said to me, إني أريد منك أن ترجع معي إلى الجامع. يعني جامع باب الجيسة. He said to me, I want you to follow me and come with me to the masjid, a nearby masjid there. فنجلس معك ساعة نتكلم ونتحدث. فقلت له حبا وكرامة. So I said, he said, I want you to come with me to the masjid. Let's sit for an hour. Let's talk and discuss things. And I said to him, okay, على عيني وراسي. Let's go. فرجعت معه وجلسنا في الجامع فجعل يكلمني ويقول إني مريض بكذا وكذا ورأيت كذا وكذا ووقع لي كذا وكذا ويذكر جميع ما وقع لي فطرح عني والله الحمد. So he said to me, this person, this African person, he said to me when we sat down, I want to tell you something. For the past few days I've been sick and I've been having these kind of symptoms and this and this and this happened to me. And exactly he was telling Abdul Aziz the things that were happening to him. He was saying the same things. He was like telling, in a way to tell him, I know what you're going through. I'm the one who's going to help you. So, alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala, at that point when I heard him, Allah Ta'ala removed the difficult burden that was upon me. And I became relaxed that, okay, I found the doctor who's going to help me. وعلمت أنه من أولياء الله تعالى العارفين. So I knew then that he was one of the awliya and the arifin, the friends of Allah who know Allah. وقال إن اسمه عبد الله البرناوي. So he says, my name is Abdullah al-Barnawi from Borneo, the African country. So you can go on the map and look how much distance is from there to Morocco. وأنه من بورنو. Okay, he says وأنه إنما جاء لفاس بقصدي. So he said, I only came to Fas, I traveled this long distance, specifically to see you. ففرحت وعرفت بركة كلام الفقيه سيد الحاج أحمد الجرندي. So I became very happy and I praised Allah Ta'ala, and I knew that the faqih, the scholar that I spoke with earlier who passed away recently, I knew he's also one of the salihin, and that his advice had much barakah, that because of him I met this wali. So look at how Allah Ta'ala is organizing his life. فإنه كان من أهل الخير والصلاح. قال فبقي معي سيدي عبد الله البرناوي يرشدني ويسددني ويقويني. So Abdullah al-Barnawi, he stayed with me for a time period. He started to strengthen me and guide me and direct me and teach me what to do, and erasing the fear that was from my heart. فيما أشاهده بقية رجب, the remainder of Rajab, and as well the months of Sha'ban and Ramadan and Shawwal وذي القعدة and the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. And فلما كان اليوم الثالث من يوم العيد, on the third day of the Eid, رأيت سيد الوجود صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. On the third day of Eid, that was my Eid. I saw Sayyidina Muhammad صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. فقال سيدي عبد الله البرناوي. So once that happened to me, Abdullah al-Barnawi said to me, O Abdul Aziz, before this day kuntu khaifun alik. Before this day I was fearful for you, on your behalf. واليوم حيث جمعك الله مع رحمته تعالى سيد الوجود صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. Today, because this day that Allah Ta'ala gathered you with His mercy, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the mercy of Allah. That Allah Ta'ala gathered you with His mercy and He gifted you with seeing Him, yani in a waking state, not sleep, not in a dream, in a waking state. My heart now, Abdullah al-Barnawi speaking, my heart now is at rest. وَطْمَأَنَّ خَاطِرِي فَأَسْتَوْدِعُكَ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. So I leave you to Allah Ta'ala. I can go back home. I've done my duty, I brought you to where you need to go. فذهب إلى بلاده وتركني وكانت إقامته معي بقصد أن يحفظني من دخول الظلام. So, then he gave his salams and he left back. And the whole purpose for staying with me these few months, these 5-6 months, was to ensure that during this sensitive, dangerous period of between the opening and illumination and between being gathered with Rasulullah, that this is a very dangerous and sensitive period because you can risk getting what they call fatah dhalmani, a dark opening, that you can become sidetracked, you can become the shaitan can come, like for example he came to Abdul Qadir Jilani, for example, and he said to him, he appeared as a great light, and he said to him with his voice, you've reached such a high level that you don't have to pray anymore, you don't have to do all of these difficult Sharia requirements, khalas, you're free. And so Abdul Qadir, mashallah, was more intelligent than that, he didn't fall for that, and so he became safe from those kind of tests and those kind of risks. And so Abdullah Barnawi was staying with me, taking me by the hand, so that I wouldn't fall into these kind of risks, so that I would maintain my safety. And as such, if I am standing on this chair and I fall down, I'm not going to feel any pain. If I'm standing on a mountain cliff and fall down, I'm going to die. So this is the kind of relationship we're talking about. So he kept me safe from the darknesses entering into me during this period of the Fath that happened to me, إلى أن يقع لي الفتح في مشاهدة النبي, until I came to another Fath of witnessing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لأنه لا يخاف على المفتوح حينئذ وإنما يخاف عليه قبل ذلك. Once a person reaches that level of Fath, then he's safe. You don't have to worry that much about him. He knows what to do. It doesn't mean asma. It doesn't mean having the protection that the Prophets had, but he's safe in terms of that he's not going to become fooled by shaitan. Whereas beforehand, there's a much greater risk. And here we can, it's a good place to stop and pause, inshallah. وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. May Allah Ta'ala bless us and gather us with His awliya and take us by the hand to reach Him and gather us with His mercy, who is Sayyidina Muhammad Sayyid al-Wujud sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
بلغ العلا بكماله كشف الدجى بجماله حسنت جميع خصاله صلوا عليه وآله صلوا